Dear friends in Worldwide Marriage Encounter, we are Bernie and Ann. After nearly a year now since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, we would like to reflect on what we can take out of these long months. As usual, we will say a few words based on our experience and then suggest a question for you to dialogue on. We would like to begin with a reading from St. Paul's letter to the Romans. So then, my brothers and sisters, because of God's great mercy to us, I appeal to you. Offer yourselves as a living sacrifice to God, dedicated to his service and pleasing to him. This is the true worship that you should offer. We have many parts in the one body, and all these parts have different functions. In the same way, though we are many, we are one body in union with Christ, and we are all joined to each other as different parts of one body. So we are to use our different gifts in accordance with the grace that God has given us.
We are all acutely conscious during lockdown that there are many frontline workers, such as those working in hospitals, schools, or in supermarkets or food banks, those who work in essential services such as police, fire brigade, ambulance, and those who empty our rubbish bins. What about those parents who doggedly work from home and are at the same time struggling to home tutor their children? All these people are offering their service as gifts, like different parts benefiting the whole body. A large percentage of the population fall into these categories, and they are deserving of our immense gratitude. For those of you offering your service in ways like this, we say thank you. But what about those of us whose life has come to an enforced standstill, who are no longer able to get out and about physically to do the things we normally did within our communities as a result of this pandemic? For example, those of us with a supportive role in the lives of children, grandchildren, the elderly, the church community, and the community at large. Instead of having our busy life full of activities that map out our days, we find we just have to stay at home. This can lead to frustration and a sense of powerlessness, feelings of depression and hopelessness. Our need for self-worth and our need to love and to be loved are not being nourished.
However, we are a community of faith, and we firmly believe that God has a plan and a purpose for each and every one of us, whatever situation we are in. St. Paul had an enforced lockdown, imprisoned by the Romans, but it didn't stop him ministering to his communities and spreading the good news via the letters that have come down to us. So, how can we put our time of isolation to a fruitful purpose? We think of the enclosed orders of nuns and monks, whose calling is to pray for the world. They devote their whole lives to this. At the moment, some of us have a temporary calling to minister in this way through prayer, but also by making phone calls, sending emails, letters, WhatsApp messages, and meeting via Zoom. Reaching out to our families, friends, those who have recently been bereaved, and others who are isolated and living alone.
As with everyone, this pandemic has turned my world upside down. Personally, I like to have a list of things to achieve each day. I need a framework to work to. This gives me a sense of purpose and motivates me each morning to get going. I never went to bed without knowing what I would be doing the following morning. My plan of action. Then came the lockdowns. We are no longer looking after our grandchildren that used to occupy a good part of our week. We worry about how they're getting on, especially the little ones who need to mix with their peers and other people for their social development. At the moment, we have no face-to-face contact with family other than an occasional brief hello on the doorstep. In Marriage Encounter, we are unable to meet in cell or enrichment other than via Zoom. It is better than nothing, but not the same as meeting face-to-face. There is no attendance at Mass or Eucharistic ministry to the elderly and housebound, not even the opportunity to attend funerals, and for me, no Spanish lessons. I found that I began to feel quite anxious, that the days were passing by and I wasn't achieving anything of great value. I felt quite down and quite useless. Then, gradually, I began to realise that God can and will use me if I let him, if I have faith in his love and his plan for each and every one of us, and for the common good. I believe that each day he has a plan for me, which he will reveal, often during morning prayer. Bernie and I read the readings and commentaries of the day, and then pray and talk around our priorities. Whom do we need to pray for? Who could do with a letter or a phone call? And for the grandchildren, we record stories that they can listen to and hear our voices. In ways like this, I have begun to feel a renewed sense of purpose. I see God directing me in my life and that I am in his will, using the situation I am in just now to share his love with others in the ways I am able in our current circumstances. I know too that God has a sense of humour. I had no sooner put these thoughts and feelings down on paper than an email arrived from the Marriage Encounter European team with 42 pages of translation to do in preparation for the next European Council that actually took place last weekend via Zoom. I had my work cut out.
During the first lockdown, almost a year ago now, I felt I was in a surreal world, and it took me some time to get used to the idea. However, part of me was enjoying this calmer way of life. For the first time, I actually felt as if I was retired, because previously our days would be taken up with various activities. Thinking positively, I saw an opportunity to change gear, slowing down and taking the time to look around me. We are fortunate to have a garden, although I never found time to look after it as I would have liked. But now I did have time. I took particular delight in feeding the birds and watching them, and I can usually count 8 or 9 different species in any one day. I also have more time to spend on my hobbies, one of which is making family home videos. I am currently putting together all the snippets of photos and video footage to make a home video called 2020, the Year of the Pandemic. We are living in historic times, and I want to record this important period of social history for posterity. This gives me personal satisfaction, and it nourishes my sense of self-worth. Finally, having this time to reflect has enabled me to keep in mind all the people I'm missing. Of course, I appreciated them before, but I'm sure that in future, whenever we get together, I will especially and forevermore value this great gift of being together that perhaps I used to take for granted. Hopefully, we are now close to the time when we can look forward to our isolation coming to an end. So I want to recognise the positive effects of the pandemic rather than just remembering the bad effects it brought us. So now we have a question for you. In what ways do I consider I have put to positive use these months of isolation forced upon us by the COVID-19 pandemic? What are my feelings about my answer? Thank you for listening.